The rancher had always lived a quiet, simple life. His days started early in the morning, with the sound of roosters crowing across the open fields. The land stretched for miles, dotted with tall trees, grazing cattle, and the occasional wildflowers that grew along the edges of the pasture. Every morning, he would walk among the animals, checking on them carefully, making sure no calf was left behind and that every fence was strong enough to keep the cattle safe. His life was predictable, peaceful, and solitary, and he liked it that way. He had learned from a young age that working hard was the key to survival, and he had dedicated his life to the land and the animals he cared for. That afternoon, the sky was painted with shades of orange and pink as the sun began to dip toward the horizon. The rancher was finishing up his chores, mending a broken fence near the edge of the pasture. The wind carried the scent of fresh hay and the faint aroma of wildflowers from the distant fields. As he was hammering the last nail into the wooden post, he noticed a figure in the distance, walking along the dirt path that led to the ranch. At first, he thought it might be a traveler or a neighbor, but as the figure came closer, he realized it was a woman. She looked tired and worried, her clothes slightly worn, and her eyes filled with a mix of fear and urgency. The rancher's first instinct was caution. Visitors were rare in this remote area, and it was unusual for anyone to arrive without warning. Yet, there was something about her presence that felt different. She moved with purpose, her steps quick but careful, as if she was hiding from something or someone. When she reached the gate, she paused and looked around, as though making sure no one was following her. The rancher called out to her, his voice calm but strong. "Hello there. Are you lost? Can I help you?" She hesitated for a moment, glancing around nervously, and then nodded slightly. "Yes." "Please," she said softly. "I need to get inside first. Then you will understand." Her words were strange, almost like a warning, but there was no anger or malice in her tone, only urgency and a hint of fear. The rancher's curiosity was piqued, and though he didn't fully understand why, he felt a strong urge to help her. He opened the gate wider and stepped aside, gesturing for her to come in. As she walked toward the ranch house, she glanced at the animals grazing peacefully in the fields, and for a brief moment, her tense expression softened. The rancher watched her closely, noticing how carefully she moved, as though she was aware of every sound and shadow around her. When they reached the porch, he offered her a chair and a glass of water. She accepted quietly, taking small sips while her eyes scanned the room. The rancher noticed she was shivering slightly, though it wasn't cold outside, and he wondered what had brought her here in such a state. The conversation began slowly. She told him her name, but hesitated to give too many details about why she had come. The rancher listened patiently, sensing that she needed time to feel safe before she could speak freely. She spoke in small fragments at first, revealing bits and pieces of her life, troubles she had faced, places she had been, and people she had trusted who had let her down. Each story seemed to carry both pain and strength, and the rancher found himself drawn to her resilience. She spoke of long journeys, lonely nights, and moments when she had almost given up, yet her voice never lost its quiet determination. The rancher, in turn, shared some of his own life. He spoke of the ranch, the routines he followed, and the challenges of living in such isolation. He told her about the seasons, the animals, and the satisfaction that came from hard work. As he spoke, he realized that he was enjoying her company more than he had expected. There was a warmth in her presence that made the house feel less empty, a sense of comfort in her attentive listening. Evening fell, and the sky outside turned a deep shade of blue. The woman finally relaxed, sitting back in the chair as if she had carried a heavy burden that she could now set down, even for a moment. She spoke of fears and uncertainties, and the rancher reassured her gently, telling her that she was safe here. There was a strange sense of calm that settled over the room, as though the world outside, the dangers, the worries, the unknown, had paused for a while. By the time night fully settled in, the rancher realized that something important had shifted. What had started as a mysterious visit had turned into a connection he could not ignore. He did not yet understand the full story of why she had come, but he felt a growing sense of responsibility for her and a deep curiosity about the life she had led. He knew that tomorrow would bring more questions, more revelations, and perhaps the beginning of something neither of them had anticipated. As they prepared to rest for the night, the rancher made sure she had a comfortable place to sleep. He placed an extra blanket on the bed and made sure the room was warm. The woman thanked him quietly, a small, genuine smile crossing her face for the first time since she had arrived. In that simple exchange, the rancher felt the first spark of trust, a fragile but promising start to a story that was only beginning. The night outside was calm, with the wind gently rustling the trees and the faint sounds of animals settling in for the evening. Inside the ranch house, there was a quiet anticipation, a sense that something unusual and meaningful had begun. Both the rancher and the woman were aware that their meeting was no accident, though neither knew where it would lead. They had taken the first step, simply by letting each other in, and the possibilities that lay ahead were endless. The next morning began with the gentle light of dawn spilling over the ranch. The sun rose slowly, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, and the air was crisp and fresh. The rancher was already outside, walking through the fields as he always did, checking on his cattle and making sure the fences were in place. The quiet of the morning was comforting, but it was different this time. There was a new presence in the house, a new rhythm in his life. The woman, still unfamiliar with the routines of ranch life, was sitting on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sun rise with a mix of wonder and hesitation. She was quiet at first, taking in the vastness of the land, the gentle hills, and the distant forests. For someone used to crowded streets and noisy towns, the openness of the ranch was both overwhelming and soothing. She felt a sense of freedom she hadn't known in years, yet a part of her remained cautious, alert to any unexpected danger. The rancher, noticing her cautious glance, smiled gently and offered her a warm cup of tea. "It's good for mornings like this," he said simply. She accepted it, her fingers brushing the warm cup, and for a moment they shared the peaceful silence together. Breakfast was simple, as it always was on the ranch. Fresh eggs, bread, and some fruit. The rancher talked about the day ahead, explaining the tasks that needed attention. He mentioned the cattle, the fences that needed repair, and the small garden he tended. She listened carefully, nodding and asking questions when something was unfamiliar. Her curiosity was genuine, and her willingness to learn impressed him. It was clear she was not used to ranch life, yet she wanted to understand, and that made her presence feel purposeful rather than accidental. As the day went on, she began to open up more. Sitting on the porch while the rancher worked, she spoke of her past, her family, the town she had lived in, and the people she had met. She spoke carefully, choosing her words, but gradually the layers of her life unfolded. She told him about struggles she had faced, times when she had felt lost, and moments of loneliness that had shaped her. Each story was shared with honesty and emotion, and the rancher listened with a patience that surprised even him. He realized that beneath her cautious exterior was a woman of remarkable strength and resilience. He asked questions, gently and respectfully, wanting to understand without pushing too far. She explained that her life had been full of changes, sometimes sudden and difficult, and that she had learned to adapt quickly to survive. The rancher was struck by her intelligence and her ability to remain composed even when recalling painful experiences. He could sense that she had been through more than most people, and yet she carried herself with dignity and grace. Her presence made him reflect on his own life, which, while steady and predictable, had often lacked the kind of depth and challenge she had faced. By midday, the woman had begun to help with small tasks around the ranch. She fetched water for the animals, fed the chickens, and even helped carry hay to the storage area. She moved carefully, still unfamiliar with the strength and skill required for ranch work, but she was eager to learn. The rancher showed her how to handle the animals gently, how to tie knots for the fences, and how to move with care around the livestock. Each task was a lesson, and with every small success, she seemed more confident and at ease. The rancher noticed a subtle change in her demeanor, a growing sense of trust and comfort. Lunch was a quiet affair, eaten in the shade of a large oak tree near the house. They shared simple food and more conversation. She spoke about small joys she had found in her travels, the kindness of strangers, and the few friends she had kept over the years. Her stories were filled with moments of hope and resilience, and the rancher found himself smiling at her wit and insight. He realized that her presence was bringing a new energy to the ranch, a mix of curiosity, intelligence, and warmth that was impossible to ignore. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, they continued working side by side. Repairing a section of fence together, they laughed at minor mistakes and celebrated the small victories when a post stood straight and strong. The rancher noticed how naturally she adapted to the routines, how quickly she learned, and how attentive she was to details. There was an unspoken bond growing between them, a mutual respect that went beyond words. She was not just a visitor anymore, she was becoming a part of his world, and he felt the shift deeply, though he didn't fully understand it yet. By evening, the air grew cooler, and the golden light of the setting sun bathed the ranch in warmth. They sat together on the porch again, sipping tea, watching the cattle move slowly across the pasture. She spoke of her fears, the uncertainties that had followed her, and the moments when she had doubted whether she could ever find a place to belong. The rancher listened intently, offering comfort and reassurance. "You're safe here," he said simply, his voice steady. "This is your place now, if you want it to be." For the first time since her arrival, a true sense of relief appeared on her face. She smiled, a small, genuine expression, and looked out at the horizon. The openness of the ranch, the simplicity of the life, and the kindness of someone willing to listen without judgment began to feel like home. The rancher realized that her presence had changed more than just the daily routine of his work. It had begun to change the atmosphere of his life itself. There was a warmth, a connection, and a sense of anticipation for the days to come. Night fell, and the stars appeared in the clear sky, shining brightly over the ranch. Inside the house, the rancher made sure she was comfortable again, preparing a small meal and arranging the blankets. They spoke a little more before sleep, sharing hopes and small dreams, each discovering in the other a kindred spirit. The rancher thought about how strange and unexpected life could be, that a simple act of letting someone in could lead to something so meaningful. She thought about how rare it was to meet someone who offered safety, understanding, and patience without expecting anything in return. As they drifted off to sleep, the rancher felt a growing certainty that this encounter was the beginning of something significant. He didn't know what the future held, but he sensed that it was a journey worth exploring together. The woman, too, felt a fragile but growing trust, a hope that she could find a sense of belonging she had never known. The night passed quietly, with the sounds of the ranch settling into calm, and a new chapter quietly began in the lives of both of them. The days that followed were filled with a gentle rhythm that neither the rancher nor the woman had expected. The morning light came softly through the windows of the ranch house, and the air smelled of dew, fresh grass, and the faint scent of the animals in the field. Each day started with chores, but the work now had a new dimension. The rancher noticed how naturally she had begun to adapt, her movements becoming more confident, her hands steady, even when lifting hay or guiding the cattle. He found himself admiring her determination, how quickly she learned and how she seemed to grow stronger with every passing task. They worked together from sunrise to mid-morning, fixing fences, checking the cattle, and tending to the small vegetable garden. The woman's laughter began to fill the spaces between the quiet sounds of the ranch. It was soft, melodic, and somehow contagious. The rancher realized that he hadn't heard so much laughter in his house in years. It brought a lightness to his days that had been missing for a long time. He began to feel that the ranch, which had once been a place of solitude, now carried a warmth and energy he had never noticed before. While the work was important, so were the quiet moments in between. Sitting on the porch after chores, they would talk about the small wonders of the world around them, the way the wind moved through the tall grasses, the songs of the birds at dusk, or the way the sunlight reflected on the river nearby. She asked questions about everything, and he explained patiently, finding joy in sharing his knowledge and experience. Each conversation built layers of understanding and trust, revealing the depth of her curiosity and her appreciation for the simple, meaningful parts of life. One afternoon, as they walked along the edge of the pasture, the woman stopped and pointed to a distant hill. "Do you ever feel like the world is bigger than it seems?" she asked softly. The rancher paused, considering her words. He had spent his life on this land, seeing its every corner, yet in that moment he understood what she meant. There was a feeling of openness, of possibility, that she brought with her presence. He nodded, a small smile forming. "Yes," he said quietly. "Sometimes it takes someone new to see it that way." She smiled back, and for the first time their eyes met with a silent understanding, a connection deeper than conversation alone. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between them strengthened. They shared meals together, often sitting outside to enjoy the fresh air. The woman had a talent for finding beauty in ordinary things. A small bouquet of wildflowers she picked by the stream, a carefully folded napkin, or a thoughtful arrangement of herbs from the garden. The rancher watched her, realizing that she brought more than companionship. She brought a sense of life, creativity, and warmth that made the ranch feel like a home, rather than just a place to live. Evenings became special. After finishing the day's work, they would sit by the fire, talking long into the night. She spoke of dreams she had kept secret, hopes she had buried deep inside, and fears she had learned to live with. The rancher listened without judgment, offering reassurance and sharing pieces of his own life. He had always been a private man, but her presence encouraged him to open up in ways he never had before. Slowly, they discovered that their lives, though very different in experience, shared common values: hard work, honesty, and a desire for meaningful connection. The rancher began to notice small changes in himself. He found himself thinking about her when she wasn't around, wondering how her day was going, and looking forward to her laughter and conversation. There was a tenderness growing inside him, a warmth he hadn't anticipated. He caught himself imagining moments they had not yet shared. A walk through the fields at sunrise, a quiet evening under the stars, or a shared meal by the fireplace. These thoughts brought both excitement and a strange nervousness, something he had not felt in many years. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and the sky turned a brilliant shade of orange, they decided to take a walk to the small river that ran near the ranch. The air was cool and soft, carrying the scent of earth and grass. She walked beside him, her hand brushing lightly against his at times, and he felt a surge of awareness at each touch. They spoke little, letting the quiet of nature fill the spaces between them. When they reached the river, they paused, watching the water ripple over the stones and listening to the gentle murmur of the current. In that moment, everything seemed simple and perfect, as if the world had shrunk to just the two of them and the flowing river. It was during these quiet moments that the rancher began to realize something profound. He was falling in love. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. He had spent so many years alone, devoted entirely to the ranch, that the thought of sharing his life with someone felt unfamiliar. Yet the more he observed her kindness, her courage, and her gentle strength, the more he understood that his life had changed in ways he could not have imagined. She was no longer just a visitor. She was becoming an essential part of his world. She, too, felt the shift. The fear and uncertainty that had accompanied her arrival had slowly faded, replaced by a sense of safety and belonging. She admired his dedication, his patience, and the quiet strength that underpinned his everyday life. She began to look forward to their shared moments, to the comfort of his presence, and the unexpected joy he brought into her life. What had started as a chance meeting had grown into something meaningful, rooted in respect, trust, and a slowly blossoming affection. Their growing closeness did not go unnoticed by the animals either. The cattle seemed calmer in her presence, and even the horses responded to her gentle guidance. The rancher noticed this and realized that her presence affected more than just himself. She had a way of bringing harmony to the environment around her. Each day, he felt a stronger connection to her, as if the life of the ranch and the life of the woman were becoming intertwined. As night fell, they returned to the ranch house, tired but content. Dinner was quiet, filled with small smiles and meaningful glances. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting warm shadows across the room. They sat together afterward, sipping tea and sharing stories that ranged from light-hearted memories to deeper reflections on life. Every word, every glance seemed to build a bridge between them, connecting two lives that had once been separate. Before going to sleep, the rancher made sure she was comfortable once more. He noticed the peaceful expression on her face and felt a quiet satisfaction that she had found even a small measure of safety and contentment here. As he lay down in his own room, he thought about how the ranch had always been a place of work, routine, and solitude, but now it had become something more. It was alive with possibility, warmth, and the unspoken promise of love. The woman, resting in the guest room, reflected on how different life had become in just a few short weeks. She had come to the ranch seeking refuge, unsure of what awaited her, and had found not only safety, but connection. The trust she felt in the rancher grew stronger each day, along with the quiet stirrings of something more tender and profound. She realized that she could finally envision a future that felt stable, welcoming, and filled with companionship. And so, with each passing day, their bond deepened. The rancher and the woman continued to work side by side, laugh together, and share quiet moments under the stars. The affection between them grew in small, subtle ways, like a slow sunrise that gradually brightens the horizon. They had entered a new chapter of life together, one filled with hope, warmth, and the promise of love that neither had expected, but both were ready to embrace. The rancher awoke one crisp morning to the soft light of dawn spilling through the windows. The air was fresh and carried the faint scent of the wildflowers growing near the edges of the pasture. He could hear the gentle murmur of the river in the distance and the occasional lowing of the cattle as they moved about in the fields. For a moment, he paused and thought about how different his life had become in the last few weeks. The house, once quiet and solitary, now carried warmth and laughter, and the presence of the woman had brought a new rhythm to his days. She was already awake, sitting on the porch wrapped in a light shawl, watching the sunrise. The rancher approached quietly, not wanting to disturb the peaceful moment. She turned toward him and smiled, a soft, genuine smile that made his heart tighten in a way he hadn't felt before. They greeted each other with simple words, but there was an unspoken understanding between them, a sense that something important was beginning to grow. Breakfast was quiet, but filled with small gestures of care. She poured the coffee while he buttered the bread, and their conversation flowed easily, touching on the day ahead, the tasks in the fields, and small details about the animals. Their bond had grown naturally over time, nurtured by shared work, trust, and the simple pleasure of each other's company. There was an ease between them that neither had expected, a sense that they had become companions not only in work, but in life itself. After breakfast, they walked together to check the fences along the northern pasture. The woman had grown more confident in her movements, handling the tools with care and precision. The rancher watched her, impressed by how quickly she had adapted to the hard work and routines of ranch life. But it was more than just her skill that captivated him. It was her determination, her courage, and the gentle way she treated every living thing around her. He found himself thinking about her constantly, noticing the subtle gestures, the quiet strength in her eyes, and the warmth in her laughter. By midday, they paused to rest in the shade of a large oak tree. She pulled out a small notebook and began sketching the scenery, capturing the river, the hills, and the animals grazing in the fields. He watched her, fascinated by the way she saw beauty in the smallest details, how she could turn even an ordinary day into something extraordinary with her perspective. He realized that her presence had changed not only his life, but the very way he looked at the world. Moments that once felt ordinary now felt alive and meaningful. Over the following days, their connection deepened further. They shared stories of childhood, of hopes and dreams, and even of small fears that they had never spoken aloud before. The rancher spoke of his family, of the land he had inherited and worked so hard to maintain, and of the quiet joys and struggles of living in a place so far from the nearest town. She shared her experiences of travel, the challenges she had faced, and the moments of loneliness that had shaped her life. Each story built a bridge between them, a foundation of trust, understanding, and affection. One late afternoon, after a long day of work, they sat together by the river. The water flowed gently over the stones, reflecting the golden hues of the setting sun. The rancher reached for her hand, feeling a surge of courage and vulnerability. "I've never met anyone like you," he said quietly. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the colors of the sunset, and smiled. "I feel the same," she replied. For a long moment, they sat in silence, letting the beauty of the world around them fill the space between words. It was a moment of quiet intimacy, a realization that their bond had grown into something far deeper than friendship. As the days turned into weeks, the rancher began planning something he had never imagined, a way to show her how much she meant to him. He thought about the little things that mattered to her, the sketches of the ranch, the way she laughed when the animals did something amusing, the quiet moments she cherished watching the sunrise or listening to the river. He realized that he wanted to be a part of her life in every way, to share not only the work, but the joys, the challenges, and the everyday moments that made life meaningful. One evening, as the sky turned shades of pink and purple, he led her to a small clearing near the edge of the pasture. The ground was soft, and the tall grass swayed gently in the evening breeze. He had arranged a simple picnic, with fresh bread, fruit, and a small bouquet of wildflowers he had picked himself. She looked at him with surprise, her eyes wide with curiosity and delight. The rancher smiled, feeling his nerves mix with excitement. "I wanted to share this with you," he said softly. "Not just today, but for all the days to come." They ate together in the quiet of the evening, sharing food and laughter, and then he spoke from his heart. He told her how much her presence had changed his life, how her courage, kindness, and warmth had brought new meaning to each day. He explained that he wanted to build a life with her, not just in the ranch house, but in every moment they could spend together. Her eyes filled with tears, and she took his hand, realizing that this was a turning point neither of them had anticipated. The rancher paused, took a deep breath, and then asked the question that had been on his mind for weeks. "Will you marry me?" The words felt both simple and monumental, carrying all the hope, trust, and affection he had come to feel. She looked at him, her emotions reflected in her eyes, and nodded. "Yes," she whispered, a mix of joy and relief in her voice. They embraced, and in that moment the world seemed to fall away, leaving only the two of them, their hearts intertwined, and the quiet promise of a shared future. After the proposal, they sat together as the stars began to appear in the clear night sky. They spoke of dreams for their life together, of the work they would continue on the ranch, and of the moments of peace, joy, and adventure they would share. The rancher realized that he had not only found love, but he had discovered a partner who understood him, respected his life, and brought a new depth to every moment. She felt the same, finally finding a place where she belonged, where she could be herself, and where she could trust completely. The days that followed were filled with preparation, reflection, and planning for the life they would build together. Friends and neighbors were told, and everyone marveled at how love had found its way to the ranch, turning a quiet, solitary life into a story of partnership, trust, and enduring affection. Every chore, every meal, and every quiet evening together became more meaningful as they knew they were sharing not only the work of the ranch, but the work of building a life together. As night settled over the ranch, with the sounds of the animals quieting and the wind rustling through the trees, the rancher and his fiancée sat by the fire, hands intertwined, hearts connected. They reflected on the journey that had brought them together. From the mysterious arrival at the ranch to the realization of love and commitment. Both understood that life would continue to bring challenges, but they also knew that together they could face anything. Their bond had been tested by time, patience, and shared experience, and now it was sealed with hope, joy, and the promise of a future built together. The rancher finally felt a sense of completeness he had never known before. The woman, too, felt a peace and happiness that had been missing from her life. Together, they had created a foundation not just for a marriage, but for a partnership that would grow stronger with every sunrise and every quiet evening under the stars. The ranch, once a place of solitude and routine, had become a home filled with laughter, love, and the quiet certainty that their lives would now be forever intertwined. The first morning after their engagement dawned quietly over the ranch, the soft light spilling over the rolling hills and grazing cattle. The air was fresh with the scent of wildflowers and dew, and the ranch felt alive in a way it hadn't before. The rancher awoke early, as he always did, but this time there was a feeling of anticipation in the air. Across the room she stirred, stretching gently and smiling sleepily. For the first time, the rancher felt a sense of complete happiness, the kind that comes from knowing that someone special is now part of every morning, every evening, and every quiet moment in between. They began their day with simple routines, working together as they always had. She moved with a confidence born of experience over the past weeks, helping with the chores around the ranch while he managed the cattle and repairs. Each task they completed together, no matter how small, strengthened their partnership. They laughed over minor mistakes, praised each other's efforts, and found joy in the simplicity of shared labor. Even the animals seemed to sense the warmth between them, moving calmly as if comforted by the bond they shared. Breakfast that morning was leisurely, enjoyed on the porch with the sunlight spilling over the wooden boards. They spoke of small plans, the daily tasks that needed to be done, and dreams for the future. The rancher spoke of ideas for new projects on the land, ways to improve the pastures, and how he wanted to expand the garden. She offered suggestions, shared her observations, and added her creative touches. The rancher marveled at how naturally their lives were merging, how two people with such different pasts could now work in harmony toward a shared life. Throughout the day, they continued to explore the land together. She asked questions about everything: the distant hills, the patterns in the river, the care of the animals, and he answered patiently, delighted to share the knowledge he had accumulated over a lifetime. She listened attentively, offering her own thoughts and reflections, and he realized how much he valued her perspective. Her presence made every ordinary moment feel extraordinary, turning routine work into shared adventures. As the afternoon sun climbed high in the sky, they paused by the river, sitting on the soft grass and dipping their fingers in the cool water. The light danced on the surface, reflecting in her eyes, and he felt a quiet joy he had never known before. They spoke of their lives before meeting each other, the challenges and struggles they had faced, and how those experiences had shaped them. The rancher shared memories of long, lonely days on the land, and she recounted her journeys and the people she had met along the way. Each story revealed more about who they were and deepened the trust and affection between them. Evening came slowly, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. They walked together along the pasture, their hands brushing against each other occasionally, a gentle reminder of the growing bond between them. The rancher felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of completeness he had never experienced alone. She felt the same, the quiet satisfaction of knowing that she had found someone who understood her, respected her, and shared her values. The world felt safe, bright, and full of possibility. Dinner was a quiet affair, prepared together with laughter and care. They spoke of the simple joys in life, of shared meals, quiet evenings, and moments by the fire. The rancher noticed how naturally she had become part of the routines he had maintained for so long, how her presence made the house feel warmer and the work feel lighter. She, too, realized that she had found a place where she belonged. A home filled not only with the rancher's care, but also with the quiet satisfaction of being needed and valued. As the stars began to appear, they sat by the fire reflecting on the journey that had brought them together. The rancher spoke of how their meeting had been unexpected yet life-changing, how her presence had transformed his world in ways he could not have imagined. She shared her gratitude for the safety, kindness, and companionship she had found. And for the first time, both allowed themselves to imagine a future filled with shared hope and happiness. They talked of dreams for the years ahead, raising animals together, improving the ranch, and building a life full of small, meaningful moments. In the following days, they began to settle into their shared life fully. Each morning brought new tasks, new routines, and new opportunities to support each other. They worked side by side, celebrating successes, sharing burdens, and finding joy in small victories. The rancher taught her more about the technical aspects of ranch life, the care of animals, the planting of crops, the maintenance of equipment, while she offered fresh ideas, creative solutions, and a keen attention to detail. Together, they created a balance that strengthened both the ranch and their relationship. Over time, the couple faced small challenges, as all lives do. Weather threatened the crops, fences needed urgent repair, and animals occasionally fell ill. Yet, each challenge was met together, with patience, teamwork, and mutual respect. Their love, trust, and shared commitment made the hard times easier to bear. She learned to rely on him as much as he learned to rely on her. And in the process, they built a foundation stronger than either could have imagined alone. The ranch became more than just a place of work. It became a home, a symbol of their partnership and a reflection of their shared life. They celebrated small milestones: a healthy calf born in the spring, the first successful harvest of the garden, and evenings spent under the stars sharing stories and dreams. Each moment strengthened their bond and reminded them of how far they had come, from a chance meeting to the creation of a life built on love, trust, and shared effort. Even the simplest moments carried meaning, sharing morning coffee on the porch, walking through the fields hand in hand, tending to the animals together, and enjoying quiet evenings by the fire. These routines became the heartbeat of their life, a rhythm of shared responsibility, joy, and companionship. They laughed often, celebrated each other's successes, and comforted each other during times of fatigue or doubt. Their love, though quiet and steady, grew more profound with each passing day. Seasons changed, and with each passing season the ranch became richer with life. Spring brought the joy of new life, with calves in the fields and blossoms in the garden. Summer offered long golden days of hard work and shared laughter. Autumn painted the land in brilliant hues, a reminder of beauty and the passage of time. Winter brought quiet nights, a chance to sit by the fire, reflect, and plan for the future. Through it all, the rancher and his wife faced life together, hand in hand, heart with heart. As years went by, their life on the ranch continued with steady joy. They became not only partners in work but partners in life, supporting each other's dreams, comforting each other in times of sorrow, and celebrating every moment of happiness. The ranch became a reflection of their shared love, a testament to patience, care, and the beauty of companionship. Visitors to the ranch often remarked on the warmth and harmony that seemed to flow through every corner, a quiet reflection of the life the couple had built together. In the quiet moments when they sat by the fire, watched the stars, or walked through the fields, they reflected on how far they had come. From the first mysterious arrival at the ranch to the deep trust and love they now shared, their journey had been unexpected but profoundly meaningful. They understood that life could bring surprises, challenges, and joy in ways one could never predict, and they had chosen to embrace it fully, together. The rancher had found a partner who made every day brighter, who shared his values and dreams, and who brought a warmth and depth to his life that he had never known alone. She had found a home where she was safe, valued, and loved, where her presence mattered, and where every day carried the promise of shared happiness. Together, they had turned a quiet ranch into a place of life, love, and enduring companionship. And so, the rancher and his wife continued their life together, building memories, facing challenges, celebrating joys, and nurturing a love that grew stronger with every sunrise and every quiet evening under the stars. Their story, which had begun with a simple act of trust and an unexpected arrival, had transformed into a life of partnership, hope, and a shared future filled with warmth and happiness. Their bond, forged in patience, understanding, and love, became a lasting testament to the power of connection, trust, and the beauty of a life built together.